Here's what bothers me about this case. Everyone wants to dismiss it. Everyone wants a simple explanation. It was a hoax. He was a con artist. The story is made up. But those explanations don't actually explain anything. Let me show you why. July 1954, post-war Japan. Tokyo International Airport is processing thousands of travelers, business people, tourists, diplomats, and the immigration officers running those desks. They're not idiots. They've seen every scam, every fake passport, every con. These are professionals who know what they're looking at. They've been trained. They've processed tens of thousands of documents. They know what legitimate looks like. They know what fake looks like. So when a man walks up and hands over a passport from a country that doesn't exist, they know something's wrong. That's their job. That's the pattern. Traveler approaches, hands over passport. Officer checks it against known countries, verifies stamps, confirms identity, checks against watch lists. Pattern holds. You get through. It happens thousands of times a day, smooth, routine, boring. But this time, the pattern glitched. And when a pattern that repeats thousands of times suddenly breaks, that's when you pay attention. The man approached the desk, European, mid-30s, expensive suit, tailored, not off the rack. Leather briefcase, good quality. Polished shoes. He looked like money, like every other businessman traveling through Asia for work. Confident, professional, nothing unusual. No nervous glances, no sweating, no fidgeting. He walked up like he'd done this 100 times before, because, according to his passport, he had. He smiled politely at the officer, handed his passport over with the casual ease of someone who expects no problems. And the officer took it, opened it to the identity page, and stopped. The officer looked at the photo, looked at the man. Photo matched. That was good. Then he looked at the issuing country. Taured. He stared at it, read it again. Taured. He'd been an immigration officer for 6 years. He'd processed passports from dozens of countries. European countries, Asian countries, African countries, countries big and small. He knew geography. He'd studied maps. He'd memorized country codes. But Taured? Nothing. Not even a flicker of recognition. Now here's where it gets interesting. The officer didn't immediately call security. He didn't sound an alarm. He asked a simple question, a test question. "Excuse me, sir, where is Taured?" It's the kind of question that catches forgers, because forgers prepare for everything except basic geography questions. They expect you to check the document, not to ask them about their fake country. But this man didn't hesitate, didn't fumble, didn't look nervous. He pointed at the map on the wall behind the immigration desk, a large map of Europe. His finger landed between France and Spain, in the Pyrenees region. "Right there," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Taured. It's been there for over 1,000 years, since the Middle Ages. The officer looked at the map. There was no Taured. There was Andorra, a tiny principality, one of the smallest countries in Europe, about 70,000 people, nestled in the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain. Been there since 1278, but no Taured. "Sir, this is Andorra," the officer said carefully, watching the man's reaction, looking for tells, for signs of lying. And the man's face changed, but not the way you'd expect. Not guilty, not caught, not panicked, confused, genuinely confused, like the officer had just told him the sky was green. "No," he said firmly, but not aggressively, just certain. "That's Taured. I'm from Taured. I was born there. I grew up there. I've lived there my entire life." "What are you talking about?" And here's what gets me. Think about that reaction. If you were running a con, if you had a fake passport and the immigration officer called you out, what would you do? You'd backpedal, you'd make an excuse. Oh, I must have grabbed the wrong passport. Or you'd try to charm your way through, or you'd just try to leave, get out before they arrested you. But this man didn't do any of that. He argued, he insisted. He genuinely seemed to believe that the immigration officer was wrong and he was right. That's not how con artists behave. That's how confused people behave. The officer called his supervisor, standard procedure for irregularities. And here's where the story should have ended. Supervisor arrives, looks at the fake passport, sees it's obviously fraudulent, arrests the guy, case closed, send him to the police, deport him, whatever, done. But that's not what happened. The supervisor arrived, a senior officer, 20 years of experience. He'd seen everything, every scam, every forgery, every trick in the book. He took the passport, examined it carefully, held it up to the light, checking for watermarks, checking for proper paper quality, checking the binding, the stitching, the printing quality, and he couldn't find anything wrong with it. The passport looked legitimate, not good legitimate, perfect legitimate, professional printing, the kind of quality you only get from government presses, official-looking seals and stamps. The photo was properly affixed, not glued on like cheap forgeries, actually embedded in the page, color photograph, high quality for 1954. And here's the thing that nobody talks about when they tell this story. It had stamps, multiple stamps, from real countries, real immigration stamps, entry stamp from France dated 3 months ago, exit stamp from Switzerland dated 2 months ago, entry into Spain, exit from Germany. These weren't fake stamps. The supervisor knew what real immigration stamps looked like. He'd seen thousands. These were real, or perfect forgeries, and perfect forgeries don't exist. Not in 1954, not with this level of detail. And then there were the Japanese stamps, 3 separate entries into Japan over the past year, April 1953, October 1953, February 1954, all properly stamped, all documented, which meant this wasn't his first visit to Japan. According to the passport, he'd been here 3 times in the past 14 months. And each time, he'd entered legally, been processed through immigration by officers just like them, and left without incident. Nobody had flagged the passport. Nobody had noticed anything wrong. So either Japanese immigration had failed 3 separate times and let a man with an obvious fake passport enter the country without noticing, or something else was happening. The supervisor looked at the officer. The officer looked back. They were both thinking the same thing. This doesn't make sense. The supervisor said, "We need to detain him for questioning." They took the man to a private interview room, away from the public, asked him to sit, to remain calm. They weren't arresting him, not yet, just questioning, trying to understand. They asked him to empty his briefcase, place everything on the table. And the man complied, cooperatively, still confused, still insisting this was some kind of mistake. And what came out of that briefcase only made things stranger. A wallet, leather, well worn. The supervisor opened it. Inside was currency. Not just one country's currency, multiple. French francs, Spanish pesetas, German marks, Swiss francs, all legitimate, all real. The supervisor knew currency. These weren't counterfeits. These were actual bills from actual countries. Why would a con artist carry real currency from multiple countries but a fake passport? Business documents. The man laid them out on the table. contracts written in French, contracts written in German, correspondence with companies in Paris, Barcelona, and Zurich, letters, signed agreements. The supervisor picked one up, read it. It was a business contract, detailed, professional, between the man's company, based in Taured, and a French firm in Paris. It had signatures, dates, legal language. It looked completely legitimate business cards. The man had a stack of them. His business card identified him as a sales representative for a company based in Taured's capital city. The card listed an address, a phone number, a telegraph code, all the proper information for a 1954 business card. The supervisor examined it. Professional printing, embossed text, high quality, a driver's license from Taured. Same photograph as the passport, same name. Official stamps and seals that looked governmental. The supervisor compared the license to the passport. Everything matched. Same person, same country, same official appearance. A checkbook from a bank supposedly located in Taured. The supervisor opened it. Recent transactions, deposits and withdrawals from the past few weeks. The handwriting matched across all the checks. The man had been using this account regularly. Everything matched. Everything was consistent. Everything looked professional, official, real. But it was all from a country that didn't exist. And here's what I can't get past. Here's what makes the con artist theory fall apart. The effort required to fake all of this. We're not talking about one fake passport. We're talking about an entire ecosystem of documents. A passport with real stamps from real countries, currency from multiple nations, business documents in multiple languages, contracts with real companies, business cards, a driver's license, a checkbook with transaction history, all consistent, all matching, all professionally produced. And for what purpose? What was the con? What was he trying to achieve? He wasn't smuggling anything. The customs officers had already checked his luggage. Nothing illegal, nothing suspicious, just normal business traveler stuff. Clothes, toiletries, papers. He wasn't carrying contraband, wasn't trying to import or export anything illegal. He wasn't wanted for any crime. His name didn't match any watch lists. So what was the point of all this elaborate documentation if there was no crime being committed? The officials started making calls. This was getting bigger than a simple passport issue. They contacted the companies listed in his business documents. Real companies. Legitimate businesses operating in Paris, Barcelona, and Zurich. Do you have any record of this man? His company? Any business dealings with anyone from Taured? The calls took hours, different time zones, language barriers, but eventually responses came back. Every single one the same. No, we have no record of this person. We have no record of any company from Taured. We have no record of any business dealings with anyone from a country called Taured. We've never heard of Taured, the officials told the man, showed him the responses. These companies say they don't know you. They say they've never heard of Taured. They say there are no business relationships. And the man was incredulous, not defensive, not making excuses, genuinely confused and upset. That's impossible. I've been doing business with these companies for years. I have contracts right here, signed by their representatives. I have correspondence, letters. We've had meetings. How can they not know me? This doesn't make sense. Pause for a second. If you were this man and everyone around you was telling you your country didn't exist, your business contacts didn't know you, and your entire life was apparently fictional, what would you do? Would you believe them? Or would you think they were insane? Hit that like button if you'd start questioning your own sanity in this situation, because I know I would. The officials brought out maps, modern maps, historical maps, atlases, globes, everything they had. Show us where Taured is. Pointed out on these different maps. And every single time, the man pointed to the same spot, the Pyrenees region between France and Spain, where Andorra is located. There, he'd say, that's Taured. Why do all your maps say Andorra? Why are your maps wrong? They showed him a historical map from 1850, before he was born. Look at this old map. What does it say? The man looked, his face fell. It says Andorra. But that's wrong, that's not right. Taured has been there for over 1,000 years, since 1278, when it was established as an independent principality. How can the old maps be wrong too? And here's what gets me. His confusion seemed real, not fake confused, not acting confused, not the confusion of someone who's been caught and is trying to maintain a lie. Actually confused, like someone who's looking at a world that doesn't match his memories, that doesn't match his reality, like he's the sane one in a room full of crazy people. One official tried a different approach. Tell us about Taured. Describe it. And the man did. In detail, not vague descriptions. Specific information. The capital is Port Bello. It's in the southern part of the country. About 30,000 people. The main industries are banking and tourism. We're neutral, like Switzerland. We've been neutral in every European conflict. The official languages are Catalan and French. The currency is the Tauredian franc, but we accept francs and pesetas because we're between France and Spain. The government is a parliamentary democracy with a monarch as figurehead. We have good relations with our neighbors. Many Tauredians work in France or Spain and commute across the border daily. The officials checked every reference they had. No Port Bello in that region, no Tauredian franc, no parliamentary democracy in the Pyrenees, except Andorra, which matches some of what he's describing. Andorra is small, nestled in the Pyrenees, has tourism and banking, speaks Catalan, has a unique government structure, but Andorra isn't Taured, and Andorra doesn't have a capital called Port Bello. Its capital is Andorra la Vella. The officials were stuck. This wasn't making sense. The documents were too good, too consistent, too detailed to be simple forgeries. The man's knowledge was too specific. His confusion was too genuine. His insistence was too earnest. But the alternative? That he was actually from a country that didn't exist? That was impossible. Or was it? One of the younger officials, a man interested in science fiction, asked a strange question. Have you ever heard of parallel universes? Alternate dimensions? The supervisor looked at him like he was crazy, but the man from Taured looked up. What do you mean? The young official explained. It's a theory that there might be multiple versions of Earth, different timelines, different histories, where things happened differently. The man from Taured stared at him. Are you saying you think I'm from a different timeline? A different Earth? The official shrugged. I'm just trying to understand. The man went quiet, thinking. Then he said something that I can't get out of my head. What if you're the ones from a different timeline? What if I'm where I'm supposed to be and somehow all of you shifted? The officials didn't know what to do with that. They made a decision. They would hold him overnight, keep investigating, contact more authorities. Maybe by morning they'd have answers. Maybe someone somewhere would have information about Taured. Maybe they'd figure this out. They took him to a nearby hotel. The airport had an arrangement with a hotel about 10 minutes away for situations exactly like this. Passengers who needed to be detained, monitored. The hotel was used to it. They booked a room on the 4th floor, room 404. The officials explained it carefully. "We're not arresting you, but we need you to stay here while we investigate. We need to verify your documents, understand your situation. We'll provide meals. You'll be comfortable, but you cannot leave." The man agreed. He was tired, confused, frustrated, but he agreed. "I understand, but please, tomorrow let me contact my embassy, the Taured embassy here in Tokyo. They'll confirm everything. They'll clear this up." The officials nodded, but they knew there was no Taured embassy. They'd already checked. The room was standard: a bed, a small bathroom, a desk, a chair, a window. The officials checked the window. It was sealed. Hotels in that era often sealed upper-floor windows to prevent accidents. This one didn't open. You couldn't even try. It was fixed in place. Even if you broke the glass and it was thick glass, there was no balcony outside, no ledge, no way to climb down. Just a straight drop 4 floors to the street below. At least 40 feet, maybe more. You'd need ropes, climbing equipment, something. They'd searched the man thoroughly. He had his clothes, his now confiscated documents, nothing else. No tools, no ropes, no weapons, nothing that could be used to escape. They posted 2 guards outside the door. Both were experienced security personnel. Both spoke some English. Their instructions were crystal clear. Nobody enters this room. Nobody leaves this room. You watch this door all night. Both of you, stay awake, stay alert. If anything happens, call immediately. The guards understood. They took their positions, one on each side of the door. The officials left. The man went into the room. The door closed. They heard the lock click. The guards settled in for a long night. Inside the room, the man sat on the bed, his head in his hands, trying to understand, trying to make sense of a world that had suddenly stopped making sense. Or maybe he wasn't trying to understand. Maybe he was trying to find his way back to wherever he'd come from, back to a world where Taured existed, where his life made sense, where maps showed his country and people knew his company and everything was right. We'll never know what he was thinking, because by morning he was gone. That night, the officials kept working. They were dedicated, thorough. They sent telexes to immigration offices across Europe, France, Spain, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Netherlands, every country that might have information. Do you have any record of a country called Taured? Any historical references? Any person matching this description? Any company by this name? The responses came back slowly throughout the night. Different time zones, different response times. But they all said the same thing. France, no record of Taured. No such country has ever existed in our historical records. The region between France and Spain contains only Andorra, which has existed since 1278. We have no person matching this description in our databases. Spain, no such country, no such person, no such company. Our records show only Andorra in the Pyrenees. Switzerland, nothing in our databases, no historical records of a nation called Taured. Germany, no information available, no records match. On and on, every response the same, no Taured, never has been, never will be. By 6 a.m., the investigators were exhausted. They'd been up all night, drinking coffee, chain-smoking cigarettes, looking through documents, making calls, and they were no closer to answers, just more confused, more uncertain. But they needed to question the man again. Maybe he'd had time to think. Maybe he'd explain. Maybe he'd admit it was some kind of elaborate performance art, some kind of social experiment. Maybe he'd tell them the truth. Whatever the truth was, they gathered their notes, their files, got back in the car, drove to the hotel, arrived at 7:15 a.m. The morning sun was coming up. Tokyo was waking up. Traffic was starting. A new day. The officials entered the hotel, took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked down the hallway to room 404. The guards were still there, standing at their posts. They looked tired, but alert. "Any problems?" one of the officials asked. The guards shook their heads. None. Completely quiet. No sounds from inside. No one tried to enter. No one tried to leave. "We've been here all night, both of us. He's probably still asleep." One official knocked on the door. "Sir, this is immigration. We need to speak with you." No response. He knocked again, harder. "Sir, please open the door." Nothing. Silence. The officials looked at each other. They used their key, unlocked the door from the outside, turned the handle, pushed it open. And the room was empty, completely empty. They rushed inside, calling out, checking. Under the bed, nothing. In the bathroom, nobody. Behind the furniture, no one. In the closet, empty. The man was gone. And here's where every rational explanation falls apart. They checked the window. Still sealed, still locked, unbroken. No way to open it, no way to tamper with it. Even if you could open it, there was no way down. No rope, no equipment, nothing tied to anything, no signs that anyone had tried to climb out. The glass was intact. The seal was intact. It was exactly as it had been the night before. The guards were brought in, questioned separately, to see if their stories matched. "Did anyone enter or leave this room?" "No, sir." "Absolutely not. We were here all night, both of us. We never left our posts, not once." "Did you hear anything? Any sounds from inside the room?" "Nothing. Completely quiet. We assumed he was sleeping." "Did you see anyone in the hallway? Anyone near this room?" "No one." The hallway was empty all night. No hotel staff, no other guests, no one. "Did either of you fall asleep?" "No, sir." We were both awake, alert. We understood the importance of this assignment. Their stories matched, exactly. No discrepancies, no contradictions. As far as they knew, no one had entered or left that room. But the man was gone. Here's where I'm going to say something controversial. Subscribe right now if you want to hear theories that actually make sense, because I think everyone's been looking at this case wrong. This is day 1 of 7 impossible disappearances, and tomorrow we're covering Flight 19. 5 planes and 14 men who reported the ocean doesn't look as it should before vanishing. But I need to tell you what I really think happened here first, because this connects to everything. The hotel staff was questioned. The manager, the desk clerk who'd been on duty overnight, the cleaning staff, security, everyone. Did anyone see a European man leave the hotel? Did anyone see anyone suspicious? Did anyone enter or exit through unusual means? No one had seen anything. No one had noticed anything out of the ordinary. The man had been escorted in around 8 p.m., taken to his room, and that was it. No one saw him again. The room was forensically examined, as much as forensics existed in 1954. They looked for signs of forced exit, for damage to the door, for scratches around the lock, for signs that someone had picked it. Nothing. The lock was intact, undamaged. The door showed no signs of forced entry or exit. They examined the window more carefully, looking for any way someone could have opened it without leaving obvious damage. Any mechanism, any trick. Nothing. The window was sealed, designed not to open. The only way to get through it would be to break the glass. And the glass wasn't broken. They searched for hidden passages, secret doors. The hotel manager insisted there were none. The building wasn't old enough to have hidden passages. It was built in 1947. Modern construction. No secret tunnels, no hidden rooms, just standard hotel architecture. They checked the walls. Solid. They checked the ceiling. Solid. They checked the floor. Standard flooring. No trapdoors, no access panels. The room was just a room. 4 walls, a floor, a ceiling, 1 door, 1 sealed window. And the man had somehow left. The officials expanded their search. Maybe he'd gotten out of the room somehow, though they couldn't figure out how, and then left the hotel. They checked the hotel's exits, the main entrance, the back entrance, the service entrance, the fire exits, all monitored or locked. No one reported seeing a European man leave the building. They checked with the front desk. If someone left through the main entrance, would you have seen them? Yes, absolutely. I was at the desk all night. I would have seen anyone leaving. And no one left? No one matching that description. Security protocols were reviewed. The hotel had basic security, but this was 1954. No cameras in the hallways, no electronic key cards tracking entries and exits. Just physical locks, human eyes, and the humans swore no one left. The Japanese authorities were now in full crisis mode. This had escalated from a strange immigration case to something completely unexplainable, something that defied every logical explanation. They launched a comprehensive investigation, contacted Interpol, sent descriptions and details to international police organizations, searched immigration records across Asia. Had anyone matching his description entered or left Japan recently through other airports, through seaports, through any point of entry? No matches. They checked hotels across Tokyo. Had anyone seen a European man matching his description? Mid-30s, well-dressed, traveling alone, speaking multiple languages? They got a few possible sightings. A European businessman at a train station, someone at a restaurant, someone at another hotel. But nothing confirmed, nothing solid. Every lead evaporated under scrutiny. They re-examined all the documents they'd photographed and cataloged. The passport, the business cards, the contracts, everything, looking for clues, looking for anything that might explain this. They contacted the companies again, this time more insistent, more demanding. Are you absolutely certain you have no record of this company, this person? Look again. Check archived records, check old correspondence, check everything. The companies looked. They assigned people to search through files, through archives, through old letters and contracts and records, and they found nothing, no records, no correspondence, no contracts, no evidence that any business relationship had ever existed. It was as if everything the man had described, everything documented in his briefcase, was complete fiction, or existed somewhere else. The investigation continued for weeks, then months. Tips came in from all over Asia, from Europe. Sightings reported. A European man at a port in Yokohama, a businessman on a train to Osaka, someone matching the description in Hong Kong, in Manila, in Singapore. Each lead was followed. Investigators checked, interviewed witnesses, and each lead turned into nothing. Wrong person, mistaken identity, misunderstanding. By the end of 1954, 6 months after the incident, The case was quietly closed. Not solved, not explained, just closed. Filed away in a drawer marked Unexplained Incidents. The official record was sparse, just a brief notation. Individual detained with fraudulent documents subsequently escaped custody. Investigation inconclusive. That's it. But the people who worked the case remembered it differently. The immigration officer who first checked the passport, the supervisor who examined it, the officials who questioned him. They remembered the details, the impossible passport, the consistent documents, the man's genuine confusion, the sealed room, the guarded door, the impossible disappearance. Some of them talked about it years later, after they'd retired, in informal settings, over drinks, at reunions, sharing war stories from their careers. There was this one case, they'd say, back in '54. A man from a country that didn't exist had documents that looked completely real. Then he vanished from a locked, guarded hotel room. We never figured it out. Still bothers me. Still wonder what really happened. The story spread slowly through Japanese immigration circles, then to journalists looking for interesting stories, then to researchers interested in unexplained phenomena. And as it spread, as stories do, it accumulated details, some true, some embellished, some completely invented. Different versions emerged. Some said he had a wife with him. He didn't. Some said the room was on the 10th floor. It was the 4th. Some said there were documents in languages that don't exist. There weren't. The details got distorted, but the core remained constant. A man appeared with a passport from a country that doesn't exist. He insisted it was real. He was detained in a locked room. By morning, he and all evidence were gone. That core story remained, and it remains today, documented in Japanese official records, referenced by immigration officials, investigated by researchers, debated by skeptics and believers, and still unexplained. So let's talk about explanations, because this is where everyone tries to make it normal, where everyone tries to fit this into a box that makes sense. The official explanation: he was a con artist with sophisticated fake documents who somehow escaped from a locked, guarded room and took all evidence with him. That's what they want you to believe. But think about that for a second. Really think about it. A con artist creates an entire fake country, creates multiple forms of identification, business documents, contracts, gets real stamps from real countries somehow forged into his fake passport, travels to Japan 3 times successfully, each time getting through immigration, each time leaving without issues. And then on the 4th visit, he gets caught. And when caught, instead of running, instead of trying to talk his way out, instead of doing what any actual con artist would do, he argues, he insists his country is real. He points at maps. He describes his hometown. He maintains the fiction even when it becomes clear it's not working, even when he's been detained, even when he's locked in a room. And then what? He picks a lock that was locked from the outside. He somehow overpowers or tricks 2 experienced guards without them noticing. He takes all his belongings, including things that had been confiscated and photographed. He escapes from a 4th-floor room with a sealed window, and then he vanishes completely from Tokyo, from Japan, from Asia, despite international alerts, despite Interpol. That's the rational explanation. Let me give you my theory, and I don't care if it sounds crazy, and I don't care if people think I've lost my mind. I think the man from Taured was exactly who he said he was, a businessman from Taured, a country that exists, just not here, not in our reality, not in our timeline, not in our dimension. I think he slipped through somehow, through a thin place, a momentary overlap between parallel worlds. A glitch in reality. 1 second, he's in his world, his normal world where Taured exists between France and Spain, where he has a business and clients and a life, and the next second, he's in our world, and everything looks almost right. The buildings look the same. The people look the same. The language is the same. Tokyo looks like Tokyo. The airport looks like an airport. But when he shows his passport, everything goes wrong. Because the maps are wrong. His country isn't where it should be. The companies he does business with don't recognize him. And he's confused, genuinely confused, because from his perspective, the world has changed. Reality has shifted, and he doesn't understand why. And when they locked him in that room, when the pressure reached a critical point, when he was trapped in a world that didn't make sense, one of two things happened. Either he found his way back, somehow, through whatever doorway or mechanism brought him here, or the universe corrected itself. Reality snapped back. The momentary overlap ended, and he returned to where he belonged, taking all his belongings with him, because those belongings were from his reality. And when he shifted back, they shifted too. And in our reality, it looked like he vanished. But in his reality, he probably just blinked. One moment in Tokyo, everything strange. Next moment in Tokyo, everything normal again. Maybe he's still out there, in his world, telling people about the bizarre experience he had in 1954, when he went to Tokyo and everyone insisted his country didn't exist. And maybe people in his world think he's crazy too. You want to tell me that's impossible? Fine. Then explain the guards. Explain the locked door from the outside. Explain the sealed window. Explain how all his documents that had been confiscated and photographed, vanished with him. Explain why a supposed con artist argued instead of running. Explain why his confusion seemed so absolutely genuine. Explain why Japanese immigration let him through 3 times before if his passport was obviously fake. Explain all of it. The parallel universe theory explains everything. The con artist theory explains nothing. It requires you to ignore half the evidence. It requires you to believe in coincidences piled on coincidences. It requires you to believe that a man could do something impossible, escape a locked, guarded room with no tools, to protect a con that wasn't actually conning anyone. And before you say parallel universes are science fiction, let me remind you that quantum mechanics has given us theories that suggest they're possible. The many worlds interpretation proposed by Hugh Everett in 1957 suggests that every quantum event with multiple possible outcomes causes reality to split. Each outcome happens in a separate universe, which means there could be infinite Earths, infinite versions of history, infinite timelines where things happen differently. In some of those universes, countries have different names. Borders are drawn differently. In one of those universes, the Pyrenees region between France and Spain is unified as Taured, not Andorra, Taured. And in July 1954, somehow, a man from that universe ended up in ours. But here's what really bothers me. What if he wasn't the first? What if people cross over all the time and we just don't realize it? What if there are people walking around right now who are from somewhere else, who remember history slightly differently, who insist certain things happened that nobody else remembers? We call it the Mandela effect, collective false memories. Thousands of people who remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s, even though he died in 2013. People who remember the Berenstain Bears being spelled Berenstein. People who remember Sinbad starring in a movie called Shazam that apparently never existed. We dismiss these as false memories, confabulation, the brain playing tricks. But what if some of those people are remembering correctly? What if they're remembering a different timeline? A timeline where Mandela did die in prison, where the bears were spelled differently, where that movie existed. What if they're from a slightly different version of Earth, a version where one or two things were different, and they crossed over somehow, and they're stuck here in our world, unable to get back, living in a reality that's 99% the same as theirs, but that 1% is wrong, and they know it's wrong, but they can't prove it because everyone else remembers it differently. The man from Taured got back. Somehow he found the door. Somehow he returned to his reality. But how many others are still here, trapped in a world that's almost right, but not quite? Think about it. Have you ever met someone who absolutely insists they remember something differently than everyone else? Someone who swears a company name was spelled differently? Someone who remembers a celebrity dying when they're actually still alive? Someone who remembers a historical event happening on a different date or in a different way? We tell them they're wrong. We show them the evidence. And they don't understand because to them the evidence is wrong. To them, reality changed. And maybe they're not crazy. Maybe they're not confused. Maybe they're just from somewhere else. And we're too scared to admit that maybe, just maybe, reality is a lot more fluid than we think. Here's my question for you, and I actually want to know what you think. Really think about this. If you woke up tomorrow and your country wasn't on the map anymore, if everyone insisted it never existed, if you looked at maps and globes and encyclopedias and your country just wasn't there, but you had all your documents, your passport, your driver's license, your birth certificate, all saying you're from a place that apparently doesn't exist. What would you do? Would you believe them? Would you think you were insane? Would you check yourself into a hospital? Or would you trust your own reality? Would you trust your memories? Would you insist that you're right and everyone else is wrong? Drop a comment right now because I'm genuinely curious. I want to know how you'd handle that situation, because I honestly don't know how I would. And here's the bigger question. Are you on Team Con Artist or Team Parallel Universe? And don't just say interesting video. Don't just give me a thumbs up. Tell me why. Tell me which part of this story breaks your explanation. What detail am I missing that proves it one way or the other? Because I've studied this case for months. I've read every account. I've looked at every theory, and I still can't decide. Am I crazy for thinking parallel universes explain this better than he was a really good con man who could walk through locked doors and make evidence disappear? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm missing something obvious. Tell me what that something is. Or tell me you think I'm right and everyone else is too scared to admit it. And here's the specific thing I want you to answer. The locked room. Forget everything else for a second. Just focus on the locked room. The door was locked from the outside with a key the man didn't have. The window was sealed and couldn't be opened. 2 guards sat outside the door all night and swear no one passed. How did he get out of that room? Not theory, not speculation, actual mechanism. Give me a step-by-step explanation of how a human being in 1954, with no tools, no equipment, nothing but the clothes on his back, escapes that room. If you can't, if there's no rational explanation for that one fact, then you have to admit something impossible happened. And if something impossible happened, then maybe my explanation isn't so crazy after all. Maybe parallel universes aren't so far-fetched. Maybe reality is stranger than we're comfortable admitting. Tomorrow, day 2, Flight 19. 5 military planes, 14 experienced pilots, perfect weather, clear skies. And then one of them radios back. We can't find West. Everything looks strange. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should. What does that mean? How does an ocean look wrong? What were they seeing? They vanished. All 5 planes, gone. The rescue plane sent to find them also vanished. 27 men gone in 90 minutes. No wreckage, no bodies, no debris, nothing. And I have a theory about that one too. A theory that connects to this case. A theory about thin places, about reality breaking down, about people and planes and ships slipping between worlds, one that most people won't want to hear. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is a 7-day series. 7 impossible disappearances, each one building on the last, each one adding to a pattern that suggests something is very wrong with our understanding of reality. Comment below with your theory on the man from Taured. Team con artist or team parallel universe? Pick one. Defend it. Explain the locked room. I read every single comment. I respond to the best theories. And I will pin the best explanation, whether it agrees with me or not. See you tomorrow. And remember, reality might be more flexible than you think.